David R. here. Today I'm going to talk to you about this book, Guilty Until Proven Innocent by Donald S. Connery. This is a nonfiction book, by the way. There are probably a zillion novels out there with the same title. So, in 1973, 18-year-old Peter Reilly leaves his youth group meeting, comes home, sees his mother on the floor. She's bloodied, legs are broken, her head is nearly cut off, and she's half naked. He calls for an ambulance, he calls his doctor, he calls the hospital. Hospital calls the state police. Once help arrives, state police automatically assume we have our guy. So they start to question him right away. He's in a police car, he waives his rights, they ask him some questions, and then take him to the state police barracks where he waives his rights again. But Peter figures, well, I'm innocent, I'm going to help these guys find the real killer. Not knowing that they figured he's the guy. So they start to question him, and eventually they start to say, you did it. And he eventually starts to think, maybe I did do it. After several hours of this, and Peter's got kind of a odd personality. For instance, on the way to the barracks, he had mentioned to a police officer, he's like, this is a very strange case, or this is a very interesting case. His mother, she's dead. She's like bloodied and raped and everything else, and he's really emotionless, and that's what they viewed him as an emotionless young killer. He wasn't tearful. I would get kind of suspicious too. So anyway, at the police station, he's starting to believe that he may have done this, and he's even thinking, so if I did do it, how did I do it? Well, police are going to tell him how he did it, right? And then they're going to get the confession out of him. And eventually they did. He signs a confession. He goes to jail, and he's placed in a cell with an older prisoner named Robert Erdhart. Erdhart's like, you need a lawyer, man. And so Peter gets a telephone book, calls up Captain Rohrbach, and then has a lawyer. And she takes a case because she's interested in these kind of cases. She takes on the most controversial ones. She took on cases for the Black Panthers and communists, people like that. So this is up her alley. All right, so once word gets around about this psychologically coerced confession from Peter, people start to rally. They start to raise money. They start to gather. They start to talk about this. They even accompany him to the trial. They even allow him to live with them, like a couple did, the Maddows. Said, Peter, you can live with us. And so he has that. He has a community. It's a kind of a strange thing if you think about it. I don't know if this happens today, maybe in the smallest of towns, but the people stood behind Peter. They provided whatever he needed, support, money. It was a very strange thing, I think. At least I think that, because I don't think anybody cares for anybody else like that today, especially a guy that maybe some of these people probably didn't even know. But anyway, he is going to trial. And at trial, everything pretty much hinged on his confession. They didn't have any physical evidence connecting him to the crime. The only sort of kind of evidence they had was how long it took him to get from the youth group meeting to home, and would he have enough time to kill and rape and discarded the evidence and blah, blah, blah. But the jury figured, yeah, he did. So they found him guilty. And he was guilty of first-degree manslaughter. And he got 6 to 16 years in prison. But he goes to prison, goes through all the formalities, that they have to do, gets to prison, and then he's bailed out. The people, the community, bailed him out for $60,000. And then he went and lived with the Maddows while he's awaiting his appeal. And so things really start to take off when three men step forward. One was Roy Daly, a lawyer, Jim Conway, a private detective, and then third was the great playwright Arthur Miller, who was also married to Marilyn Monroe, by the way. And so once they get in there, things start to really change, especially that private detective. Private detective, he uncovers all kinds of evidence. He even gets arrested somewhere along the line because the prosecutor doesn't like him snooping around and finding out stuff. But this prosecutor unexpectedly dies of a heart attack. Not really technically that old. And then a new prosecutor takes over. And the new prosecutor, his name is Dennis Santori. And Dennis Santori is kind of honest. Unbelievably, right? So he finds some evidence that Bianchi had hidden. And he presents it to the judge. Judge reviews it. Judge finds Peter Reilly not guilty. He drops all charges. And there you go. Now, one thing I think this book says a lot about is how people can come together and rally behind somebody. I think that's very important. And also, it's a classic case of the false confession. I think every law student should read this. It's just my opinion. Anyway, talk to you later. Bye.